start by removing these caps on the wiper arms. Do both of them, and then we'll remove the two nuts. They're 14 millimeter. All right. At this point, you can grab the wiper arm and just wiggle it up and down. Oh, left and right. Looks like this one popped free. There we go. Remove it and do the same to the other one. Let's do the same to the passenger side wiper blade, or wiper arm, I should say. Remove that cap, and then with the 14 millimeter, remove the nut. Looks like this wiper is also coming off as I unscrew it, so that's perfect. Sometimes they're pretty stuck on here and you have to wiggle them and kind of pry. But we got lucky on this one. There we go. Remove the arm. On each corner, you'll see one of these push clips. Push down on the center to unlock it, and then pry up the outer piece, just like this. Do the same to the other side. At this point, I can lift up on the cowl, pry it out from under the windshield. There's a couple push clips along the front here that need to be popped out. Just slide this out and remove the cowl. Here's your wiper motor. I'm gonna have to disconnect it. The clip is underneath, so press on the tab to unlock it, wiggle the connector off and set this aside. You'll see two 10 millimeter bolts, one on each side. Let's remove those. There's one. There's a second one. It's got a washer, make sure you take that with it. Now you can lift this up, slide it to the passenger side at first to unlock it from over here, and then lift it up and out. There we go. And now let's separate the motor from the wiper transmission. I want to take this nut off first, and to do that, I'm just going to take a wrench, spin the motor and regulator a little bit so I can get to this nut better. And I know that that moves its position, but I have a plan for putting it back to exactly where it was. So let's undo this. 12 millimeter. Take this lock washer off. And now flip this over. And with a T30 Torx bit, you can undo these two bolts. Now you can separate the motor from the wiper transmission. Usually it's a little stuck on here, so let me just get a little hammer. If you tap it gently, it should come right off. And here is your old wiper transmission. Now let's reinstall the motor on the new regulator. Make sure that it's positioned approximately where it was when you took it out of the car. So this is the passenger side, this is the driver's side, and these are where the wiper arm is attached to, so make sure these are facing up. Basically, I'm imagining that this is bolted onto the vehicle, and then the motor sat right around here, and obviously this can be positioned, so as long as it's in the general area, it's fine. And the two bolts went into these holes here, which actually had some nuts that fell out for me. So I'm going to insert those back in there. Line the motor up with the new transmission, and it has two dimples that actually line up with holes that are pre-cut in there. Now you can start in these bolts to secure it. Snug these up. Okay, so at this point it's secured onto the wiper transmission. However, I did turn the motor. So what we're going to do now is plug it back into the vehicle and activate the wipers. What that's going to do is it's going to put the motor back into its park position, which means where the wipers are down, and only then can I attach this wiper arm to the motor. Otherwise, it'll be skewed and the wipers will kind of be just all over the place and they won't line up where they're supposed to be. So now I'm going to hop in the car, put the key in the ignition, turn it to the on position, and activate the wipers just once. you'll see the motor is spinning and stops. When it stops, that's when it's in its park position. So if the wipers were hooked up, that would be the wipers being all the way down. So now that we know that the motor is in its park position, I can install the regulator arm onto the motor here, and I'm actually going to do it by hand with a wrench. So I don't want to move the motor, and actually I should mention the regulator needs to be in this position here with this arm kind of parallel to everything. Otherwise you'll have the wipers a little bit offset, and we'll test them. Once this is bolted on, I'm going to give it a test and make sure that it's spinning and moving the way it's supposed to. Now I want to put this nut on, snug it up, and this part is kind of tricky because you don't actually want the motor to start spinning. So you can see, oops, I moved this, see that's tricky. You have to use a wrench, and you have to watch the shaft of the motor in there. Make sure it's not actually spinning, because if it is, then you're taking it out of its park position and kind of ruining the setup here. So this is bottomed out. Right there is tight. It's actually spinning the whole regulator with the motor, which that's fine if it does that. So let's put it into the car and test fit it. What I mean by that is not test fit it physically, because I know it will fit. So line it up with everything. It has this hook here that needs to fall into place. Let's plug it in. And at this point, what I want to watch is the wiper arm shaft here. Just watch one of them. That's fine, because they'll both be synchronized. So basically, I want this to spin clockwise and then counterclockwise. If for some reason the transmission is a little bit off on the motor, it's actually going to go counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, which means that your wipers are going to, from their park position, are going to shove themselves into the cowl and then go back up. So it's not going to be pretty, so to speak. So let's do the same test. So we'll turn the ignition on, run the motor. It's plugged in. They go up, it goes down, and stops right where it's supposed to be. So imagine the wiper arm was on this. It would go up, 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 reach the top, go back down, and park itself where it's supposed to. So that's perfect. Again, if yours starts by going down a little bit and then up, you need to adjust the motor where it bolts onto this transmission. Otherwise, you'll have some issues. So now that this is perfectly lined up, turn off the ignition, and let's bolt things back up. Let's take the bolts that came out of the old one. The one towards the middle of the vehicle had this sleeve on it that has a little bit of an adjustment. So let's insert that one right in there and line it up with the bolt hole. There it is. And this one on the driver's side also has a sleeve. Mine actually got stuck in the old bushing, so I pulled it out. It's easy, you just push it through with your finger, slide the bolt through, and then line up the bolt hole and attach it. And the reason you want those metal sleeves is because otherwise, as you tighten the bolt, it's just going to crush that rubber bushing, and there's nothing stopping it from getting completely crushed. So it's kind of important that you have those. Push the bushing through all the way. Perfect. Now the bolt lines up. Let's snug these up. I'm just going to start it by hand. Make sure they're not cross-threading. Don't make these too tight because they do break easily. So just bottom it out like that. It's secured. Let's do the same to this one. Now reinstall the bolt in the center of the vehicle, on the passenger side of the wiper transmission. And let's bottom this one out, snug it up. All right. Now let's get the cowl on. Slide it underneath. Kind of has to go underneath both corners, but also there are clips that slide underneath the windshield at the same time, so it's not the easiest thing to line up. So you have to kind of tilt it. And okay, so this side's in. I'm going to go to that side and press it underneath the windshield just like that. It has some hooks that slide under. So before I do anything else, I'm going to test out the wiper arms. Now let's test the wiper arms one more time so that I make sure I don't have to take anything else apart again. Activate the wipers. Okay, so if you look closely, you don't notice the wiper arms wanting to go down at all when they first sweep. So that is exactly what I want. I'm looking at both of them to make sure. That means the wipers are ready to go. So let's bolt the cowl in and attach the wiper arms. So the 2 push clips that went on each corner of this cowl are the type that you actually have to press back out before installing, and not out all the way, but out enough to where these little tabs can press in and squeeze. So I'm going to reinstall this one, and now to lock it, you press it flush with the outer piece. If you go through all the way, then it's unlocked again. You gotta pry it out and press it back in. So let's do the same to both sides. Press it down, lock it, okay. Just kind of tap it into place, it should lock in. Let's put the wipers back, and on this windshield you can pretty much tell where they were height-wise, so make sure you kind of line them up with where they were before. The new wiper transmission came with new bolts, so start those on. And I'm just going to do them one at a time here. Let's snug this one up, make sure the wiper still stays where it's supposed to. And as you tighten it down, the arm will get pressed onto the wiper transmission shaft here for the wiper arm. And once it's snug, there we go. That's bottomed out and snug. Stop right there. Let's do the other one. Bring it in over here, line it up to approximately where it was, press it on, start on the nut, and snug it up. Now I'm going to spray the windshield down with some glass cleaner, that way I don't run the wipers dry. And I'm going to test them one more time to make sure that everything is good. Perfect. Let's put the caps back on to cover those bolts. Perfect. And there you go, you're all set.